Welcome, welcome. I am so looking forward to our conversation today, Brian. Before we start to talk about some things about your firm, just share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I was trained as a CPA and did that work for a number of years. And 10 years ago, started out on my own, away from the CPA profession, just to be a bookkeeper slash controller slash CFO advisor, working with small business owners that don't have the time, the inclination, or the interest in keeping up with their numbers, and would love to have somebody who understands their business and can speak to them in layman's terms and help them understand where things are headed and what would be next.
And Brian, I was inspired to have this conversation with you today because we were recently talking about some of the changes that you've seen over the years in your firm. So if we were to look back at before we started working together, what were some of the challenges that you actually were facing at that point?
Well, I was always, it's a little embarrassing to say, but I was always I was like, oh, I was so grateful that people wanted to work for me. So I would take on anybody. And I would not, I didn't really have the tools available to help me understand what my value was for the work I was doing. I was still thinking of it in terms of what's an hourly rate. The previous CPA firm that I had worked for actually charged fixed fees. So I wanted to adopt that concept, but I was woefully undervaluing the price of the work that I was doing. Um, but the concept was great, and that was my challenge, was getting out of that mindset of, oh, it's just bookkeeping work, and not really realizing the full value of what I bring to the table and how to charge for that.
So part of what I'm hearing is that anybody that said yes to paying your fees, you took on as a client, but you also knew that your fees didn't reflect the value of services you were delivering, but you didn't really know how to fix that. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years now. So the first 5 years, it was basically a matter of, I didn't want to, once I had a fee, I didn't want to change it. I was always very eager to help pay for the subscription fee. So that was included, that was part of, that was part of the expense of me gaining a client. And so that was where it really sort of was a challenge, is trying to figure out, is this all there is? I mean, it was sort of like the same thing every year over and over again. And I had almost 40 clients at the time, and was again, because I didn't know any different, I thought, well, this is just the way it is. Um, but I quickly found out that's not true.
Okay, and with that being said, what was that reason that you actually decided to seek some assistance with changing your business model and for us to actually work together?
I ran across a continuing education course that you had given through I believe it was through the CPA Academy. And it talked about how to value price your work. And I thought, well, that's what I want to do. And so I thought, typical with a CPA, oh, well, I get the hours. So if I don't gain anything, at least I'll get some CPE credit. But once I attended the class, it really encouraged me and lit a fire into me to say, that's what I wanted. I needed that tool. I needed that knowledge base, and that template, if you will, to be able to make that change. Again, that was going to be the next hard step, was making the change, but at least I now had the information.
And one of the things you mentioned a little bit earlier was that with your clients, you actually never changed their fees. So were you thinking about raising your rates at some point before we met, but you had some things that kept you from actually doing that?
Well, I always just kind of thought it was, I don't know, it was just uh, in my mind, it was a misunderstanding about, how the business world works, in terms of, if you charge a fee, then what's the reason to increase it if you're still doing the same thing? And um, it became, it was more the mindset of, I looked up and I thought, well, the only way to make more money is to have more clients. And I thought,
Hmm.
that's not necessarily what I'm interested in. That's where this became really valuable to understand um, that fees don't have to be static.
Hmm. And so you were mentioning that you had 40 clients. If you wanted to increase your revenue, then you would have to have more of that factory style model where it was very, very transactional. And I know you're very much a relationship type of person, and
Exactly.
that's how you work with your clients. So what was some of the challenges that came up as you wanted to increase your revenues, but you just didn't want to take on any more clients because you don't like being transactional. That's not the type of person you are.
Exactly. And I think that was part of it too, was that, I was doing everything. If somebody would ask me to do something different, then I would say, okay, sure. And I wouldn't ever approach the idea, well, that's really outside the scope of what we're doing. And so that's something that necessitates us to, renegotiate, if you will. I didn't work with contracts. It was just handshake, Um, so it was just very one-sided on the behalf of the client. And made it more difficult for me to ever get to that next level of, how I would make more money without having to work harder.
And before we actually did start working together, did you have any concerns about moving forward? And what were some of the things that helped you kind of come to a point where this was something you were ready to do and wanted to get going with it?
Well, I mean, I think it was just that mindset that it's like it was difficult for me to um, ask for money, I guess is a better like for a better term.
Hmm.
I did spend some time in the working in the investment business, and that was one of my struggles was asking for the order. So it's I needed confidence, I needed encouragement, I needed support, and that was what I got from you, and that was what was so valuable is to um, show me the path and then help me along the way, if you will.
Hmm. And one of the things that you're mentioning, and I just wanted to highlight it, is that it wasn't just about great pie in the sky ideas and then, oh, go figure it out, Brian.
Right.
This was really more about us working closely together to implement together as opposed to you doing it on your own. So can you give an example of something that we did work through together that you were able to successfully implement?
Well, we were able to take my lower level clients, if you will, or say clients that were I was charging the least amount, and work out a plan and a dialogue and a discussion that I could have with the clients that I was comfortable with that would allow us to take it to the next level and to say, look, this is sort of, um, I mean, for lack of a better term, this is the minimum I charge. But I mean, it's just um, it was helpful to have someone to hold my hand along the way. But here's the dialogue. This is what has worked in the past. These are the ways that you approach it. It gave me a couple of different options, whether I want to talk to them in person or on the phone or by email. And it worked out really well. I mean, there was, and I was prepared there would be attrition, and there was some attrition, but for the most part, it was really the clients that I was tired of working with anyway. And so the ones that were loyal to me that I'd known for a long time, raising the rate was not a big issue.
And what happened the first time somebody said yes to your new rates? Do you remember?
I mean, I do have this memory back of mine of excitement, hanging up the phone or reading the email, going, "Wow, this really does work." Because once it happens once, then you realize, well, where else could this go? And
Mhm.
it's so and again, it's not so much. I mean, yes, I was not charging enough for what I was doing, but I was also not providing clients with um, the knowledge and the background of what it is I really do and how I really can help them and how the value of what I bring to the table. So it was good to be able to approach some of the clients from the concept of why don't we just do more than we just keep in the books? Why don't we do more of this CFO model? Why don't we do more of this? You see me more frequently and we talk about things and we really strategize where the business is going. Because quite frankly, and I would say this a lot, that the bookkeeping side is a commodity. The rest, what you're really paying for is what's up here. What you're paying for is
Mhm.
my experience and my knowledge and what I have seen in the business world. And that's what made this such a success. And I think that was so crucial. It's easy to say now, but I couldn't say that before. I couldn't visualize that. I couldn't think that way. And you helped me get to that level. And I'm forever grateful for that because it's not braggadocious. It's just it's if this is what I'm going to do for clients, I have to be able to articulate it and explain it in a way that they understand it and agree it and are welcome and interested in wanting to do it.
And I remember that there were actually some clients that you were actually giving them the information, helping them with those insights, but you weren't getting adequately compensated for it.
That's true.
So,
Like
so
I
now,
said, it was more like, oh, you want to work for me? Good. I'll give you everything I got. Oh, you want me to pay for the QuickBooks fee? Oh, of course I will.
so we changed the positioning where they now see you as an advisor and you happen to
Yeah.
do the compliance side too, as opposed to leading with the technical aspects, and you gave all that information away for free.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, it's a huge difference, and then it reflects in the type of referrals that I get from these existing clients. I mean, as you will recall, my business is based upon referral and word of mouth. So not only is it good for the existing clients I have to work with, but it's good for the kind of people that they refer me to because they're referring me the same people with the same mindset that have that same need for what I provide.
Now that you're working with a higher value client, you're doing more of the advisory. I'd like to get into some of the numbers. So tell me about some of the numbers that you've seen change since you made the switch from low rates that were hourly over to value pricing your services.
Well, I think we started working together in 2022. So basically, the difference between 21 and now is a 54% increase in revenue on a yearly basis, which is a big change. I mean, and what's crucial to understand about that is my client base has gone from 40 to 13.
Okay, so you've had a 54% increase in revenue, and you've also been able to cut your client load by 50%.
Right. Right. So yeah, I mean, so think about that. I mean, that's a huge difference, and that's what that implies is that I'm doing a lot more advisory work, which is what I love.
Mhm.
It's where my value is. I mean, I mean, nowadays with AI and stuff, I mean, a lot of the bookkeeping tasks can be completed without an individual. Um, so but for my clients, there's a great deal of a peace of mind of knowing they've got somebody looking over their shoulder, somebody that's helping guide them on how the direction of the business financially, but then they're also the same person that are keeping the numbers straight.
Mhm. And because you're working so closely in a 360 or a very holistic view with your clients, is there maybe a different way that you started approaching how you look at the work that you're doing for your clients, whether it's a project or an ongoing monthly fee that is value priced? And because you've changed your approach with looking at how to price the services, I know that it's had some impacts for you and your firm as well.
That's true. It was funny, because that's the part I so much enjoy about working with you is I keep thinking, okay, we've done everything we're going to do, and then oh, here's the next thing you haven't thought of. So I got into this mindset of okay, everything is going to be relationship based and it's all going to be value price and it's an ongoing maintenance and agreement with the client. And then all of a sudden, you help me understand that there's some situations where it's just great project work and you can again charge a value for that as opposed to an hourly rate. And So it's not ongoing, but in a lot of cases it's significant money, so it helps make a difference as well. And it's short term, so you're not locked into a relationship if it's not something that's a good fit, but you're providing, value to the client to give them what they need.
And because that, I just want to say, has this had an impact, not just in your business, but maybe translated over to your personal life also?
Well, yes, absolutely. Because of the fact that I have such a smaller client base, um, I actually don't have to spend as much time to generate 55 or 54% more revenue. So it does give me free time. I work from home, I work for myself, and from that perspective, it gives me time to do some of the other service work that my wife and I so much love to do at the church and various places. So it's really good to. Sorry about that. So it's really good to um, have that opening, if you will. It's not that I spend my time going fishing, hunting, and playing golf. It's other stuff that I do.
But you could be.
I could be if I just don't do that anymore. That was in a prior life.
I know you give a lot back to your community at this point.
Yeah.
And Brian, what was some of so looking back, what was some of the things that maybe you did to start to increase your rates? And I know that not everybody was an easy yes. So, but you're very client centered. So how did you navigate some of those questions that came up?
Well, it was easiest to do, obviously, when I could articulate to a client that there is more value I can bring to the table. In other words, there is more that I can do. And if we approach it from that perspective and say, look, why don't we establish, a 12-month contract, and these are the things that we're going to accomplish, and this is the value of what I do. This is the investment for doing that, as opposed to, we've always done this before, but now there's more that we can do. And so that's where that came about. And 90% of the time, it was always like, oh, I didn't know you did that. Sure, absolutely. Let's do that. I thought you were only available quarterly. I didn't know you could come monthly. So yeah, it was a good transition in that respect.
And also, let me just think. Is there anything else that you've done maybe from a systems perspective to streamline or to make your firm more profitable?
Oh, gosh. Um,
I know that we addressed the QBO subscriptions.
Right, QBO subscription was a big deal. Well, it was a great idea in the beginning because Intuit offered a 50% discount to the pro advisor, and back then they were charging $30. Well, now they're charging 150, and they don't give you that kind of discount. And if you do that for 13 clients, I mean, yeah, this was a significant change for me, and client by client, it wasn't that big of a deal. And the other part of that too that was insightful was recognizing how many times a year Intuit would raise their price, and I would think, gosh, I haven't raised a client's fee in 5 years, and they're doing it 2 or 3 times a year. And well, okay, so everybody is, I think it's a perfectly reasonable expectation that prices are not going to be static. So that was a big part of it. Having templates that I use, having a process that I use in terms of when I first meet with a client. I mean, um, doing the diagnostic review and doing a proposal for cleanup work. The steps that you have helped me put into place. Not only is it not only does it help with additional revenue, but it also helps me to get a feel for, is this dance going to be worth it? In other words, so many times you meet a client for the first time and you think, oh, this is going to be great. This is the problems they have. This is the issues they have. This is the things that I can solve for them. But maybe there's a personality conflict, or maybe there's just some dynamic that makes this not a long-term relationship. And so, with that three-step process, I end up with the opportunity to see how well it is going to work going forward and whether or not it is a good fit for both of us. Yet, I'm getting paid to find that out.
Mhm.
That's helpful.
So you now have an
I
on,
think it's perfectly valid. I mean, that's,
right.
clients appreciate that. They understand.
You now have an onboarding system which positions you more as an advisor as opposed to a technician. One of the things that you mentioned when we first started this conversation was with your original clients, you never changed their fees. So is that something that you've now changed or adjusted so that people don't stay at the same price forever until you part ways?
Correct. And some of that is, I wouldn't say I have a hard and fast rule, but it is always in the back of my mind that, okay, it really becomes a matter of how the relationship is going. If it's one of those things where I'm thinking, wait, all of a sudden I'm doing more and more work and things are, we're not on the same page here, then that's an opportunity to talk about, look, this is what we should be doing. This is the way it's going to be. And this is the new fee going forward. Some clients, I mean, quite frankly, I still have clients I'd work for free. So I'm not that, but that doesn't mean I don't charge them, but I'm not too concerned. I'm adequately paid for the work that I deliver. And so in some of those cases, I'm okay with that. So I still like to be flexible. I still like to be in control of when I make that decision, as opposed to every year we're going up 10%. I mean, it's not necessary. I'm very well compensated for what I do, and I enjoy what I do, and I don't have to spend a lot of time doing it.
And the part that I'm really picking up on is that because you're now being well compensated, you're happy to do the work. You enjoy it more, actually.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. No, because I realize, I'm there's value in what I'm bringing to the table, and people, they're expecting that value. They're expecting that answer or that solution or that problem solved. And so um, we don't ever talk about, oh, this is too much money, or boy, I wish you could, charge me less. I mean, I'm sure, and you would probably tell me this as well. I could probably go higher in some instances, but at this point, I'm comfortable, and so it's good to know I'm not pushing the upper limit. But I look at it in terms of what more could I do for a client, and if I can do something more, and it that brings value to them, then that's one way that I'll make more money. The other way is I obviously have enough capacity to take on more than 13 clients. So
Absolutely.
it's just, it's great to be in that position where I'm very comfortable where I'm at, but there's tons of room for growth and diversification. So just a matter of if and when I want to go that direction.
And you mentioned value over and over and over again. It's a big part of what you bring to the table and how you work with your clients. So what were some of the mindset shifts that you had to make in order to really be able to move your firm in this direction?
Well, like I said in the beginning, I had worked for a CPA firm that charged a fixed fee. What was so funny though is it was always backed up by timesheets, and they would never consistently adhere to the fee that they agreed to. It was always, oh, wait a minute, this is out of scope. We got to charge more. A lot of that was just because people weren't on budget. But what happened when I said, okay, I'm going to do this fixed fee arrangement, I'm not ever going to change it, but I was doing it in my head based on what's a valid hourly rate. And so once I got out of, it doesn't matter how much time I spend, it matters what value this is to the client and the expertise that I have to be able to deliver this product. Um, I have I don't track my time. I have to, if somebody said, how much time do you spend? I'd really have to think about it because I don't, it's just not the way I operate. So that's been a huge mind shift is
Mhm.
what is the value of what I do, regardless of how much time it takes. That's not, it's just not something that enters into the equation. My time doesn't enter into the equation.
And clients, do they push back and say, well, you did this for me, and yes, you got me this great result that's going to bring more revenue into my business, but it only took you 10 minutes to do that.
All right. I've never had anybody say that because they've never seen how long they don't know how long it takes me, and I don't ever. And I usually give a sufficient enough window to complete the task that they wouldn't be able to do the math anyway. Something that may take me 10 minutes to do, I may say it's gonna, it'll be next week. Um, so they don't have any way to judge that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it just doesn't ever come up. Um, majority of my clients, well, of course, everybody's on a fixed fee. I may have two people that I have to remind to pay me. Everybody else, it's either auto pay or they pay me the day the invoice comes out. And that's been from the very beginning is I would tell people, you don't pay me, I don't work because you're paying me at that point in time, the arrangement was always, look, if it's $500 a month, it's $500 on the first of the month for that month's work. It's not for the prior month's work. So you're paying me for what I am getting ready to do because we've agreed to a fixed number. So it's not going to change. You've got a budget. So you need to pay it on time. And
And,
so,
and I just want to highlight what you're saying, that we were able to shift your firm from invoicing and getting paid after the fact to now you're prepaid for your services.
yeah, and in a lot of instances, clients will pay me for the whole year, and that's great. So that's another plus to this arrangement is I have that flexibility. So for some clients that makes a lot of sense. Uh, just depends upon the situation.
And the amount of time, Brian, that you're saving, not having to track time, invoice,
Right,
or follow up on payments.
right, right.
That's a headache.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. And when you are following up, trying to get a client to pay, that does kind of make you wonder what's the value of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me is the biggest telltale sign of how successful a relationship is they don't ever complain about the fee and they don't ever complain about making a payment. And the only thing that I probably could say is maybe I need to charge more, but we'll see. That'll come down the road.
Mm-hmm. And I know that we touched a lot on how things have changed in your firm as well as your personal life. Is there anything else that you wanted to note about some of those changes that maybe we haven't quite pinpointed yet?
I think that's pretty much the we've touched on it all. It's just it's the idea that I feel so blessed that my quality of life is just unsurpassed. When I was working as an employee, it was always, I was miserable. I was always worried about somebody else controlling how much money I made and controlling whether or not I got to keep my job. And now I realize that this is just like the best of all the worlds. And I get to do what I love to do. I have clients that enjoy working with me and I enjoy working with them. And I'm not chasing the dollar, and it's not cyclical. It's every month, and it goes up every year. So from that standpoint, that's pretty darn good.
You've had so much growth personally, professionally, since we've first started working together. Is there anything else that you feel is important that you would like to mention that maybe we haven't touched on?
I think you're absolutely right. If I was to say what is the biggest change in all of this. It's in me emotionally, psychologically, being able to have the confidence to consistently face this kind of change and this kind of growth because that was not me. And I say it was not me. It was not something that I believed in, and you've done a wonderful job of helping me understand that no, that is there. And once I got over that, and it's still, your personality is your personality, but I am so much more confident than I was before. So much more assured of the value that I bring to the table and the things that I can do for folks. Because in the end, that's what I want to do. I want to help people. And this is like a dream come true. It really is. It really is.
Brian, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to do that?
They can email me at brian@bjmcelroy.com, or they can call me even.
You actually pick up the phone, huh?
I'll pick up the phone. I don't have an answering service, so they can call me. But yeah, that's the easiest way is it would be to email me. And let's get in touch. I'm glad to help.
Brian, I so appreciate being part of your inner circle, being able to share with others about your journey. I know that you are inspiring someone that is listening to this right now, that
Oh, I
they,
hope so.
you've done it and they can do it too.
Sure. Yeah, accountants are, typically pretty introverted folks. So it's kind of good to see that it can be done.
And if anybody wants to follow up and have a similar conversation with me about how to be able to increase your rates, work with higher quality clients, and also be able to reduce your workload, I can be reached at businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk. Anyway, Brian, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
This
Glad
is
to
Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solutions, showing firm owners how to double their income working half